go ahead and get started. And just so we know, we are cameras and mics, so this is being recorded. I mean, not just so that you know that. I spoke with Anthony over the weekend, and after talking with Brenton and with Anthony, thought maybe it'd be a good idea to get people around the table here with some maps, and so we can kind of talk through some of the issues that presented themselves on Wednesday morning. And it seems like there's definitely some questions, some opinions, and some thoughts, but I don't think we're that far away from getting something done. But that's the purpose of this work session, is just to kind of try to work through those things. And the way I'd like to approach it is to have everyone be able to go around. So we have the two public improvement projects that were talked about, and staff's here obviously to answer any questions. And then we have the parking and the design guidelines. So hopefully within the next hour and a half, we'll get a chance, or hour, a little over an hour, we'll have a chance to talk about all those things. But after talking to many of you, and I've talked to all of you about this over the last...
Jesus, Rupert, don't you know what time it is?
But I think maybe the approach would be, and I know Rod and I talked about this, participatory decision-making, that's called, Rod?
In theory.
Yeah. Theory. So anyway, so what people need, you get everyone a chance to go around the table and say what they need in order to support the project. For example, I know I talked to Brent and I'll let him say, but that came out of Brent and I's conversation is, what exactly is it that's holding you up from supporting this? And then once we get all those things, hopefully then we can give that to staff. Staff will be able to put those things in and bring us back more information about the process of actually getting the project done. Because I think in the end, we all want the project, to get a project done. We're talking about these two parking lots over there, to get something started and get something done. And I think we all know that there's a lot on the line right now. There's a number of organizations that have shown interest in supporting financially a project. So anyway, that's why we're here, to hopefully be able to get something done. So maybe we could just all go around and just where we're at with these two projects over there, whether it's financial, whether it's location, whether it's the amenities, and just where we're at. Start off by just saying what we'd like to see and what it's going to take to get us on board. Is that a good enough place to start?
Well, yeah, that way, Mr. Mayor.
Who wants to start? Should we go backwards, word for
Well,
word?
Rod. I can start. I don't care. But I got to stand.
Sure.
down.
If you want to draw, here's the markers. And
You want to come in here?
I can't get between those.
Where's those,
Oh, really?
where's those two
Is that
pages
on
that
top
we
of it?
had?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, well,
The ones we got at the last meeting, where it's a little bit more.
as an initial kind of statement, what I would like to see us do would be, we need to float more than one project. I think our challenge in the past is that we do one project every 8 to 10 years. And so for us ever to complete anything, it's a 20, 30 year timeline. So I think that there's, at this point in time, there's, 3 initiatives, in principle out there. Obviously, one is the improvement downtown. The second one is the aquatics center, and the third one is the Riverwalk. And I think, and I'll actually have 4, and you could include the dairy within the river improvements. And I think, we have to kind of look at how do we make all of those things happen. To degrees, obviously, we're never going to be able to do, a complete river walk from kind of, Highway 210 all the way downtown in one go. But there might be a piece of that we can do and we can afford to do. And I think we've got to get all citizens working towards improving the whole of Fergus, in a more holistic way than these silos. I mean, I think we live in, this community is very good at actually getting something done if there's enough people that like a specific project and go for it. You've had the community ice arena, we've had the library, where we've proved that we can do that. M-State needed money for their project, and the community is very giving. But I think we need to encompass all of that, and I would challenge what we do. We equally need as a city to say, right, well, the city can fund X piece of it, but as a community we need you as a group to help raise some money for your particular project that you want to do. So, but I kind of think on these 2 parking lots, I agree with Rod in the sense that I think this area we need to improve, and encourage people to come downtown and make this more of a central focus for the city. Whether that's just doing a simple basic overlay of the car park and tidying it up while we kind of do other projects. I would like to see the crosswalk, the pedestrian crossing, as it would be called, reinstated on Union. I walk from my house downtown quite a lot during the summer, and trying to cross on these lights, it's a nightmare. So I end up jaywalking just because I get fed up of waiting.
Just so everybody knows, I think we're talking about the west
Right.
lot. Is that the
Yeah.
correct designation?
And so I think if we could encourage the market, the farmers market to come downtown and actually make that the beginning of something, so that people come down. If we could have some pop-up events that happen down here, and then ultimately, we can look at developing the river walk from behind the courthouse, through to the mill, and then doing something in this, and including some bathrooms, restrooms, toilets, public lavatories in this area. Water closets. So that, again, there's some public amenity for doing things like that downtown rather than in the river. And then I think that would give us some leverage to go back to Bartram and say, we're doing something here, you need to do something here. And then I think we need to look at parking, and we need to have a public meeting. We need to go down Lincoln and then look at enforcing the parking rules in there, and then making these back lots, which there are a lot of them, into obviously all-day parking, so that people can, people that are working downtown can park in a lot that's designated for long-term. So we'd have short-term parking and long-term parking. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Now, when you were pointing here, where were you pointing as far as where you wanted that farmer's market?
I mean, I don't mind the farmers market being in this block. I mean, it doesn't worry me too much, because I think this lot, this lot is more buildable, and has better ultimately commercial value to sell the lot down the road for somebody to develop. And if we have people coming down here now, we can build over here, and then it's a simple transition for them to go from a pop-up kind of farmers market to a permanent solution.
So, is it safe to assume, on my comments, that if you knew that there was something happening in the short term, you would be in favor of moving forward on, on the next phases of design,
Yeah,
conception,
I don't know whether
costs?
I don't know whether we need. I mean, I don't know whether we need a study. A design cost for an amphitheater and what it costs to walk, I would
That's what I meant.
support, but
I was talking
I
about
don't
just
want
the
to.
PIs.
I'm not going to support another study, because if we do another study, that'll take us to the end of the summer. Then we'll have to deliberate it through the winter, and then then we'll, that's another year gone by, and we didn't accomplish anything.
My question, I meant just speaking directly to east and
Yeah.
west, those
Yeah.
those two parking
Yeah.
lots, figure out,
What
supporting,
it's actually going to cost to do it.
putting the PIs together and
Yeah.
moving forward, but your biggest thing is getting something
Yeah.
done short term.
Yeah, and
Alongside it.
Yeah, and equally, I'd like to see us kind of then also do the same for an aquatic center, so we get what that really would cost, so that then we can go out and challenge the community on how do we get it done, and see how we can finance all of the things rather than one single project.
When you're talking about the farmer's market, or are you more talking like a temporary location now, knowing
Yep.
it's gonna be in one of those
Yep.
spots, but not like the full-fledged permanent?
I mean,
For the scale of what the.
for this year, to do something that's
Just
temporary, to get people to come downtown.
Are they willing to move down?
Yes, yes.
I've never talked to anybody.
I've heard it from two different people, and I spoke to them a year ago about it, showed them the options, and the preference was if we could help them move, which is one of the civic groups that's been discussing as a project, if we could help them move so they wouldn't have any extra cost, and they could locate, on that lot, the west lot, at this point, be the easiest, like Anthony said, with the least amount of, it's kind of open, you could do something there, and then wait to see what happens with the rest of the development things, because some things could change, but that's I understood. If I could just chime in on what he
Yeah.
said, I couldn't sleep last night because this is it's such a big decision for us, and we're all wanting the best for the city, I know that. But, so I went through all the notes I had from the CAC going back a year and 3 months, and reread our stuff, and I was reading what Kevin Bartram said. And I believe we have to have partnerships on this, private, civic, how good that works for us, right? Hockey arena, library. So I think he's a partner that he's read, and I think he's close to playing because of what he says in some of these comments. So he says, the new property explained they want to keep and build apartments on the existing concrete foundation. I don't know what it means by keep, but that's what it says here. And so it's not, a trail will not likely go across that, which means that whole bridge concept there is not really in play, which we know now. The owner is unsure of what to do with the building, but there's a possibility of developing a hotel on the site. And many of us have hoped we could get a hotel downtown of some kind of a lodging. The other thing he says, and the only reason I quote Kevin Bartram is because I believe he is would be a wonderful partner if we can get that started. Because there's nowhere else we're going to come up with $8 to $10 million, which is probably what it would, some kind of project, figure it would take to get him, to get that going with other things we do, which would stimulate a lot of activity down in that center area. So he said he doesn't see a lot of activity, pedestrian activity downtown along the river. Kevin suggested adding pedestrian pathways and trails to encourage more pedestrian activity. Now, our Glacial Edge Trail funding is potentially 2 years. We could get it, if we get accepted in 2018, it could be delivered in 2020. The loops we've planned, if we can look at the loop, something around, connects his building to walking, and he sees we're doing something. And I believe, and that's why I focused on, I brought this in, so I could, not to brag, but if you look at all this, we have to lay a target over something. We have to be shooting at something here. And that lot over there, that lot right there, to me, that west lot is the epicenter. And again, when I went through all those notes from the planning and read these little boards that were put up by the public, this was the comments that, site number 2, which is the old mill on this map, that first map we did on concepts, before we folded everything into the downtown reach. Are you with me? We have these little dots on stuff. Mm-hmm. This site number 2, the mill, was one of the ones that people said, this needs to be a top priority. We need to move this up, this site. And so, and I circled a couple of those comments in here. So that, along with the site where Shopko is, and that other lot next to the adjoining, which is the east, referred to as the east lot here, those were really focal points of our first steps, I felt, from the public standpoint, and from the CAC when we first were meeting. The first 3 meetings were very strong on that. That's why it's not that I'm not in favor of the PI projects proposed, and I raised the question last time, that we're engineering on the east lot now, but we did engineer on the west lot. I would like us to start, and I'm willing to go to that east plan, but I think to get Kevin Bartram true partnership, show him what we're really serious about him being there, that we start on the lot, that west lot, and get the farmer's market down here. Where am I? Here. Yeah. And then once we do that, I also volunteered to be on the, the Summerfest committee, and wanting to see us bring the energy of Summerfest Saturday evening downtown, parade through the downtown. And that would also mean an event down on that lot. So my goal would be that we encourage the staff to start looking at how we can take away those stubs, not take away any parking spots, and Darren's may talk to us, but I think Darren's agreed to talk to some of the owners to make sure we don't lose any spots, but just for this summer to get the market there, get the Summerfest, and they have an event there, a tent, with some stuff going on, some music, they can see the river, and then a fireworks display. Hopefully that would be paid for by a lot of private funding raised too. It could potentially go off at Hannah Park, so you could see people on the right park there, and have the traffic managed so that people could set up and look over the river. What a beautiful viewing and ending to the Summerfest parade to have that going off from Hannah Park, and then they could also sit at Hannah Park and watch it, because I know there's not a lot of parking at Hannah, but so it's a bigger, it's like, okay, here's a step where it would be bringing business in, activity. People would say you're starting something. It's not denying the other ones, but it's the first concrete step. That's kind of where I'm at on this suggestion.
Just a question, are you willing to do it simultaneously as long as you know that something's happening down on the west side? Are you willing to be in support of, take a look at the 3-year plan on those?
Absolutely, yes. If we can commit to doing helping the Summerfest thing happen,
then you would support
and the lot on the west, I'm totally with you on
getting the PIs going.
And going forward on the next.
Getting the public input into design
Right.
and all that stuff.
Yep.
So we can wrap our arms around this one first.
For June, like setting a June, Summerfest is June 7th and 8th, I think. So setting a date of June 1st to be able to use that lot, the west lot, and so we can plan fire, everything we want to plan, make sure it's going to be there.
I know you're involved with you mentioned one of the service clubs, I think it's Rotary Club, has looked at possibly.
Sunrise Rotary.
The farmer's market as being something they're interested in.
Yes, taking on that project. And then the other one is they want to clear 2 projects. They want to do a funded project, which would be that lot, moving the farmer's market and getting something set up. And they want to do a work project, which means helping clear the trees, whatever, we could work with the park department. They clear it out so it's ready for viewing. And we feel that would give the community a great sense of, we're doing something, we can have something together, and that's Sunrise Rotary, yeah.
Fireworks wise, is there enough water there to shoot up over so you don't have sparks flying all over on land and stuff, or
I've watched the State Fair fireworks every year for many years, and I don't know if you know what kind of show they have down there, on that stage there, But I'm not a pyrotech guy, but I'm pretty sure from seeing other works that if you had that out on the point at Hannah Park there's a lot of water there,
Yep.
across.
Go to Barefoot
Yep,
Park,
mhm.
works over.
I think that's almost the safest place to have it, aside from going out,
Well,
on
they
the-
shut them off the grandstand forever.
So,
Yeah.
In the water days.
Yeah.
Sure.
yeah.
I'm just thinking of the old way of doing it, like up in Warroad, they used to shoot them out over the weeds, and the weeds would start on fire about, it was real dry, and
Makes it more exciting.
yeah, well, but I mean, they even had one year where the whole works blew up on us.
That's the post show.
I think we, before, I want to talk about Rod's, about, I think the farmer's market's a great thing, but the Summerfest committee's not in favor of coming downtown this year.
Yeah,
And
I
I know
think you
I-
have to understand, because I'm on that now.
Yeah, and I
So
talked to,
let's-
yes.
Let's be clear about it, we haven't met to make final decisions, but there's 2 parts to it, Scott.
Right, but you're gonna come up against a wall on that. They
But I
have a
think-
great thing going up there, and I don't think the vendors wanna come back downtown again either, so I don't know if we should, not for this year, but I think maybe in the future you could work on it, but I think we're gonna run up against a wall on that.
Well,
To Rod's point, I mean, I think just getting that lot going
Right, I
doesn't
agree.
necessarily mean to tie it to any particular, those things can work themselves out if but there's, we can get activities going down there.
But I think there's things like Shop, Move and Groove and, that type of thing where, there's other events that take place
Right.
downtown, so.
The parade route too, I think, I just always wondered why they moved it out where they did. That, to me, should be coming downtown and have people lining the streets downtown. I mean, they're there, they maybe go into the few stores we have down there, but still, to me, running that down the main street is where any parade should be. And
Well, even the
any
restaurants
town.
can bring stuff out
Yeah.
and sell the people out on the streets and everything else.
Yeah, it's important to bring it downtown.
Yeah.
I think if you, they have no plans of moving that, I don't believe.
yes, they do.
They're moving.
You're wrong. I'm sorry, I like you, you're a good guy.
Well,
But I've been
I
on
didn't-
2 meetings with this committee already, Scott, and you haven't been there.
And I know you've been there, because the lady told me of it, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that they didn't want to move from the RTC, and she didn't say anything about moving the.
No, they're not moving, so here's what, I can explain this
Are
briefly.
you
What's
talking
happening.
about the parade, or are you talking about the vendors?
No, the
'Cause-
way it's working this year, we are taking the parade downtown. It's been agreed, all right? We are not disturbing what they have up there. So there's activity, there'll be kid stuff, but they've agreed to let us get the parade and bring it back the other way so that it comes downtown, number 1.
So it's going to go down the same road, it's just going to come back this way? then?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we'll choose the route with Kyle and others, best route, whatever. But then it can end, and the initial discussions, it would end in the Shopko lot. Okay, so it'd come downtown, and then we would involve merchants. The second part of that is that we'd like to bring it up, and we've agreed to make it earlier. So instead of having it at 6, we'd have it either at 5 or a little earlier, so by the time they get downtown, there's still time to eat, have something, and then have something going on. Now, the downtown portion is not connected to the portion up there, so they're not putting anything on downtown, the Summerfest committee. I think
No.
that's what you're hearing.
No.
But the downtown, some people on the downtown council and others, and Steve is here, he was in the meeting, have agreed, and I've agreed to work with them on then the transition so that another group takes over. It's like a handoff, all right? They do their thing, they cut it off a little earlier up there because it does die. Anyhow, I've been up there watching it die at 4 or 5 o'clock. We bring the energy downtown, and then we have some music, we have, like I said, the things downtown. And that's another group, Scott, so I think we're
So,
talking
I
the
was-
same thing.
Yeah, you're right, she just said the route wasn't going to change, it's going to stay on Union, what you told me.
But it'll
But
reverse.
it's going to go, she didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right,
Does that make sense?
that makes sense. That's what we got. Brent?
First question I got for Rod, you want to remove all these posts in this parking lot?
Yep.
Okay. And I don't have a problem with that in most part. The only problem I see is in the wintertime, we don't want to end up having it be like Walmart where all the roads are going like this all the way. It would be nice if we could come up with an alternate plan, if not using all the posts, to be able to put guides on these, because otherwise you're going to lose a lot of your parking space in the wintertime because people just don't pay attention to where they're parking. If there was something else we could put in there, or if the posts could be removable where they could be reinserted somehow back in the wintertime so we can guide these people. And right now, all the parking is going north and south. And if we do things along the river, I would like to see the parking go east to west, because I think that will end up being a lot better use of space. And plus, so you got fewer lanes, which means if you do have posts in the ground, it's going to be a lot easier for
Parking lots like in the east lot.
yeah, in order to basically clear that for snow and everything in the wintertime. As far as when I talked with Ben about the 2 PIs that we got going down here, I'm really impressed, and I'm really excited to see the amphitheater go and the boardwalk come. But I cannot support anything that puts the farmer's market over here. Because I've been over here on numerous occasions, even before I got connected with the senior center, and this thing gets full, especially when the federal building and everything is going. And according to their little thing, there'll be like 30 spots left underneath the farmer's market. Well, you got so many people who already have lease spots over here, they're gonna take a chunk of that. And then whatever's left. And then the problem they say is, well, the farmer's market's only 1 day a week. The problem you're gonna see is, if this starts to get more and more popular, you're gonna have enough of people coming to the city and saying, hey, we'd like to rent this. We'd like to do something down here. Now we're gonna start looking at possibly renting that thing out, and now we're gonna have no parking over here. And as far as the senior center, they're not gonna be willing to walk from all the way over here, from all the way over here, all the way over here. Whether we like it or not, this is a retirement community. And we have to take them into great consideration. I mean, when I talked to Amy Baldwin about this, she said, I can't remember exactly what it was. Originally, if I heard her right, they wanted the farmer's market over here, and I can't remember the reason why they moved it over here. Now, if that gets moved over here, and we can maintain all our parking here and maintain a majority of our parking here, I'm behind it. But parking is a major issue for me. When we do the parking study, we have a lot here, here, and here. If we want to build, because this is going to attract a lot of younger people downtown, they can afford to walk. The older people cannot. And these people who want to run into one of these stores real quick over here are not going to want to walk all the way from over here. That's the people that I had spoken to in the past were really against losing all this parking over here. So, I mean, with the boardwalk and the amphitheater, I'm behind that. And if this can be moved over here, I'm behind that. Otherwise, that's the one thing I would not be able to get behind.
Or move somewhere where it doesn't impact the parking.
Yep, or it's not as much. You're gonna lose some.
Sure.
But, you know, we want to, they're pushing the historic downtown and they're pushing the riverfront. So move this over here so you can enjoy the riverfront, yet the people are still coming downtown and enjoying it. If we start looking at that, I can stand behind it.
I agree with Brent on the parking there for the seniors. We do Meals on Wheels about every other month, 1 or 2 days. And that whole thing is full right here with seniors at noon.
And then there's rentals too on the.
Yeah, plus there's rentals along.
She said there's like 11 of them or something like that.
Yeah.
Are those rentals for the apartment that's accompanied there? Or are they
I think it is, and then there's a,
longer term rentals?
there's a, you know, the downstairs is, what do you want to call it, different businesses, and they got rental spots.
The one thing I'd like to see when it comes to the rentals, I'd like to not have one here, one here, one here. I'd like to say, this is the block we're gonna allow, because that way, when it comes to the wintertime and you gotta clean up this parking lot, you don't have Public Works having to go around all these buildings. They only have to be, you know, inconvenienced in one spot.
Just
You
out of
know.
interest, the rentals are renewed every year.
Yes, you can just move.
So we could, I mean, if we make a decision, we could move them, offer alternative spots.
All right.
And we've got if you guys are interested, there's a map that we have sitting over here about the city-owned parking lots and what their capacity is. And I don't recall if that one shows how many spaces are rented or available for rent. If it's how the discussion is right
And can I continue?
Please do.
I would agree, working on these two right here. I want to see something done where we show progress. I mean, we look at all these studies and all this other stuff going on all the time, and we never get anything done. People are at the point where, cut the studies, do something. And we need to get in here and do one or the other of these, or maybe both, and get something done to show people that we're actually doing something. Studies are great. We do study after study after study, but we never get anything done. All we do is study it. It's time to fish or cut bait.
Want me to go now?
Sure.
Or do you want to jump in?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I agree.
I'll do it.
We have to move ahead. And the, I didn't know we were going to talk about moving that, there's so much time on spending on that farmer's market. I mean, it's like, I think it's good work, no matter where we're just moving stuff around. But we need to keep going forward on this. We did this plan, we were going to, look like it was going to get stagnant, but going back to studies, I think a parking study needs to be designed. I talked to Ben about this, I was in St. Cloud here over Christmas, and downtown St. Cloud has 3 parking ramps. And the downtown is just wild. I mean, it's just crazy how many people are down there. So I think a ramp is going to be in our future, but I don't know where it's going to be. That's why I think that study is. But we can keep moving on when that study's going on. We don't have to stop. We're not going to stop anything. And getting rid of all those posts in that parking lot. I've talked to quite a few business owners, and they all just laugh when they try to clean that parking lot out. It's just terrible in the wintertime. So with that, I think that just to get, if they want to move downtown, I think that's great, but we just need to move ahead, like Jim says, get people to show we're doing something instead of just standing around talking and doing nothing, no progress. So that's, I don't have a, I missed out on the first one, on the meeting before, because I was gone, but I think that as long as we keep moving ahead, rely on Amy to kind of keep us, giving us feedback of what's going on, that's kind of where I'm at. She's our one.
Fair enough. I would agree with the west one being the location for the farmer's market. I think the post should be taken out. As far as the study goes, we might be okay at some point to be looking at that. If we get some kind of development or something that's going to happen along here, we might be a little premature for the study. I think we can get enough answers just by going to talking to some of these. We might get a multitude of different questions and answers to do there, but we can sort through that. I like the idea of possibly going east to west. That's a great question for, if you got any feedback on?
No, most of the ones I went in here and talked to, I just real quick went in on Friday. I remember when I talked to Pat over at the Viking, I mean, he's really not going with anything that's going to mess with the parking back there. Keith over at Sears, I talked to him once before. I wasn't able to get a hold of him this time. And he didn't want anything where it was going to mess with the parking out back. My only concern, like with moving the post, is if we can come up with something else that's very limited. Otherwise, we've all, like I said, we've been to the parking lots in the wintertime when they go all over. You're going to lose a lot of your parking there. I mean, even if you put a post down on both ends, snap the chain in between where they could take the chains out, go on in, clean it out, and snap the chains back on. Just anything, you know, just to kind of guide them.
Yeah, I guess
Most of these other people.
You gotta define the row, because you're right.
What's that?
You need to just define the row.
Okay, something, yeah, it's
that-
just,
and that could be a marking.
well, once they do the snow, you don't see the markings no more.
No.
Oh, with this break.
Huh?
Go.
Hey, you come from a
Black
place where
paint on
there's
the
parking
snow.
ramps everywhere. So,
Are you
I think
thinking
some of
the
the,
farmer's market
some of the
permanent
lines,
to
that we
west?
probably give our vehicle operators probably not enough credit. I think they can start a straight line and probably keep it that way. I would disagree with how wavy it gets. I don't know. You know, yeah, you're gonna have that happen on occasion, but maybe put a little sign on the window or something, you know. We gotta get something started. I agree with that. We're at a point where we need to at least wrap our arms around something that we can get done for this coming summer season.
Are you looking permanently, would you look to farmer's market be permanently in the west, or?
Oh, you know, not necessarily,
Yeah.
no, not
We wanna
necessarily.
keep
I
it
think we want
flexible.
to, start, I wonder about the visibility, you know, off of Union, how it looks, it's got to look pretty good to have something going on there, kind of a focal point for people as they come through town. I mean, the traffic there is off the charts. I mean, what is it, 14, I don't know what the number, 14,000? 15,000 people coming through there that see that, that's right there.
Hasn't that dropped though since they put the bridge in? Where'd he
The
go?
other bridge to the west?
Yeah, he just left.
It's still around 14 on Union.
It is still, that even after the bridge is put in. I thought it was going down, but okay.
So that could certainly be a start for us, you know, on that west side, and once they get a little used to that, if it's a year or two down the road, they've got to maybe migrate it somewhere. Maybe in a few years, there's something happening over by Bertram's, maybe there's a spot there for them that they could go. I'm not saying definitely that we need to, you know.
even if we leave a spot open for them here, just to put it here so they can see how well it's gonna work. And then if it turns out working okay, then maybe go through with the farmer's market.
A spot though.
You know, just like they have out in front of, the Historical Society. Give them the area
Oh,
roughly
sure.
where it would be, and then
Yeah.
let them set up their tents
Yeah.
or what they want to do, and then if it turns out working out good, if it doesn't, then maybe reevaluate it.
Yep.
So I think that, I think action is exactly right, Jim. I think doing something is very important. I like the idea of kind of starting out with that west lot, and making that an area where, we could do the farmer's market, or we could do, whatever else might be the case in addition to the farmer's market down the road, but, keep our options open there. And being the senior center liaison last year, I have also had conversations with them about the importance of preserving that parking, and I think that's gonna be a very important thing to keep in mind during the process. But, if we could make sure and preserve some parking in that lot and then put an amphitheater, off of that east lot, I think that would be great. I think the activity in those two lots would help us, formulate that partnership with Bartram and hopefully kickstart something there, showing that we are willing to, take some action towards, revitalizing that downtown area and driving more traffic and getting more people down there. Because I think that's where our future is getting people downtown, give people a reason to come here. I think, as we've seen from the Target debacle, that the big box retail stores aren't necessarily going to be the future of shopping or development by any means. So I think the more creative we can get in encouraging that kind of organic growth downtown with small businesses and restaurants and hotel and that. So I think this is a good first step that we need to take. And we need the Aquatic Center.
Right. Need to qualify.
Yep.
Committee's coming to the next.
Oh, okay.
20th,
So I'm excited there.
28th? 28th? Did everybody get reached out to? The Aquatic Center, just touch base on quick. Did everybody get reached out to in the Aquatic Center?
No.
From them people?
I
From
got two
their,
of you to call.
the group?
I hope I'm one.
You are,
Am I one?
Tom's one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm gonna reach out to. Say the best for last.
No?
Rick Owens gonna reach out to you.
I got,
I got four guys I gotta reach
I thought
out
Rick talked to you
Darren?
already.
Well, he did talk to you, that's one.
All right.
Not, I don't know. when.
We had a good conversations, but anyway, they got some good, but just make sure we
I did talk to him.
communicate back with them and give them your honest opinion. That's what they want, so.
So we haven't heard from Justin yet, right? on
My
this?
take on this is, kind of what's already been said. I think we need to get a project that's stale in the community, that we're not doing anything, and so I think it's twofold. I think we need to get something going temporary, and I think the best feedback we're gonna get is from the farmer's market in that first year. We'll get an understanding of, maybe that location on the west does not make sense, and maybe we just need to somehow look to the east lot to have it be there potentially. I'm not against putting it on the east lot, but I also understand the parking issue for everybody involved in that corridor, which I also am of the opinion that we need to simultaneously work on that study, because if we're gonna drastically be changing the traffic patterns, because that's the idea of this, is getting more people downtown, if we're gonna be changing and driving more people there, we need to make sure we understand. And I do think the business owners need to be in on that conversation, because they know a lot, they've been around their business. But I also think I'm not an expert on, and nor do I think anyone on this panel is on parking, and so I wouldn't want to make a long-term decision that could dramatically affect things without having some professional accompany that study before we do spend serious dollars and change the infrastructure down there. So I'm not one to spend money and just do study after study, but I think it is something.
Parking study, I believe, should be done.
Yeah, and I think we need to, this is a 1 year, but also we need to sit and give a 3 year and probably even a 5 year of what are in this current plan, what are projects that we can look to do, and what is the, I think Anthony said, what can the city look to fundraise? What can we look, or not fundraise, but finance, and what can we look to actually fundraise? 'Cause I think if you can go to the general public and have a plan in place with projects and timelines, it's gonna be a lot more attainable. And I think it's a clear direction at that point too for staff on what's priority. And some of that might change based on funding at the state level. It might move things, but I think this is great. I think it's a positive. I know going out to the Historical Society, living out that way on a Saturday morning, it's awfully rough. They're parking on, the half park on Lincoln, and it's great to see all the people out there, but it might not, I think getting that downtown is gonna create some nice synergy. So going forward, I just think we need to somehow get something implemented that's temporary, that doesn't cost a lot, knowing that we might be making changes on location.
locations of parking and all that.
One thing I think, remember too, is when people don't just drive by and pull in there, that's a destination for them. They know the farmer's market there, so it's not like they're gonna lose all that visual. I mean, it's visual, but it's not a mandatory thing, so I'm glad to hear that they want to move, so.
I think the visual part of it would be good being on that west lot.
Right.
People going by there.
It'll help, it'll be good.
Yep. And I think the other thing in this study, if we're gonna do one on that section, would be kind of a more significant crosswalk sort of on the Stanton Union. Because if you want to develop the west lot into being something where people go, then you need something to probably help slow the traffic down on Union so that they A, can see and B, obviously, and make a quote safer zone for crossing.
Kyle, why did we take that crossing out? You remember? It was in front of Ancient Cars. You remember?
Well,
Why?
mid-block crossings typically aren't, they're not the best, they're not the safest.
So-
Mid-block crossing.
We could go back to Stanton, that would be a,
Well, and the other thing too is when that bridge was built 10, 15 years ago, I think part of the thing they did there is they added the lanes. It used to be just pretty much two lanes.
no, it's 3
But I think
or 4.
because of some of the grant funding, they had to add lanes. So, I mean, you got some issues down there with, the biggest thing for me for pedestrian crossing is you got probably five lanes of traffic with the turn lanes and so, Brian and I have talked about this a little bit too, but, I mean, you're gonna have to, one of the things you might have to look at is not allowing left turns into that lot, but you probably need somebody to kind of really design not only the pedestrian crossing, but then also the flow of that parking lot, what that's gonna look like. And maybe switching the entrance.
Off a court, you mean?
No, just on Union is what I'm.
Speeds are pretty fast there too.
It is, but the biggest issue is you just multiple lanes, trying to get a pedestrian across multiple lanes unassisted or unaided, I mean, that's.
So is there something we can do about the lights actually changing to let people cross? I mean,
Lincoln and Union?
I mean, literally, you can press the button and you can wait forever.
Yeah. Those, I don't know, there's cameras that kind of sense, but a lot of it's, timers, they gotta go through a sequence and stuff. I think you're better off maybe trying to redesign a pedestrian crossing, like we have around the schools. Some of those flashing yellow lights can be push button activated, or they can even be passive. Yeah, but I think, interrupting you if you think off base, a center median, potentially narrowing the lane, having a protected zone in the middle, where the pedestrian's only crossing one lane, then they're to a protected area when they cross, one more lane. But there's definitely gonna have to be some design that goes into not only that parking lot redo, but also pedestrian crossing.
Didn't we used to have a hanging light out, yellow light that flashed
Yes.
right there over that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those aren't, and I don't know, there's some change, like some of the ones that we have in town now, they were approved, now Federal Highway Administration saying that maybe they're not gonna approve them anymore. They're much more visual, I think, than that standard 8 or 12 inch blinking beacon. People don't see those. But there's a lot of things you can do to help.
What did you say like the one at school was actually, the one at the school's pretty good?
Yeah.
The Court Street access.
So, can I ask a comment? If we could gather all the input, everyone's, and this is where everyone has to say, no, I didn't say that, or I wanted to say that. So then to try to go forward and to think about what kind of motions we can direct or to move this, right? I'm wondering if we can think of your time frame, Ben, that you brought up, that I mentioned last time, is, we talked, when you and I talked, is that 1 year, like now, first, and then the next year, then 3 year, 5 year, right? Like, so we put it into that kind of framework right now. So we take all these ideas and say, okay, so if we were to do a PI project or direct the staff, could we have a motion that says we want the farmer's market to try out, to be there, which means removing the posts, and that we would like to see some kind of a streetscape as one of the first things, which the next Kevin Bartran to our action, and also allows people to get across there without risking their life and limb, you know, on that. And then still have that second one waiting, but not start that one until we're sure we see what happens on this first move that we do with the farmer's market and the streetscape. So we don't change anything about the west or the east lot, PI, but we don't start with that one. We start with this one, and then we say that one will be the next step when we see what happens here. Is that, and I'm just proposing a possible way of starting it.
Yeah, it seems to me in order to get the one and then the 1 year, like, it's clear, I think everyone sitting around this table wants to get something done short term. Like, let's get something moving. I would hope that we don't lose out on energy around the bigger, you know, some of the things we've talked about in that plan and moving them forward, because we're only focused on that one lot. And I think there's, Andy was mentioned, there's the Dean Trust is behind, is in support of some of these things. I think there's an opportunity for funding out there if we move forward. So what I would like to see, and this is obviously up to everyone, is to say we'll continue the process forward that we've started with this master plan, and that gets the community input into the design and the pieces and coming up back with cost estimates. And so we're continuing to move forward on both projects, contingent on us having a plan to get something done by June. That's what I'd like to see. So I think we're using some staff time to come back and say, these are the different components, these are some of the rough costs that would be involved. Here's some of the funding sources we think we can use. So it gives us, we're continuing to move forward, we're not committing to anything, but it's contingent upon actually getting something done now. That's what I'd like to see. Are people opposed to that? Is that moving too fast on?
No.
I think that's what we're all, I mean, I think that's what most of what everybody said, is do this one thing, and then we're gonna continue on with the rest of the phases.
So,
Or we can wrap our arms
Kickstart it.
around. we
I
can
think
wrap
the
our arms
focus
around
of the whole, of what we're doing
Right now.
now should be on those 2 parking lots.
yeah, absolutely. I just want, because I totally agree we need to get something done on West. I don't want to wait until the fall, though, to then take the next step on coming back with some cost estimates and stuff like that, because I think there's plenty of opportunities that are out there
We
now.
can continue on with the east and we go along with the west.
But,
That's not a problem.
but make sure that people know that we're gonna get something done by X date on the
Yep.
west.
Yeah.
Does that make
No
sense
problem.
to people?
I think that the question I have, I agree with that, is the devil in the details on this for me, is that we are gonna get pushback, to me, on any other study until we show we're doing something.
But I don't think it's a study, sorry, I know.
No, I'm talking about, so I'm gonna throw the parking study in.
We'll get there in just 1 second.
Good.
Are we all in agreement of the
That's-
from the
We're not
PIs?
talking about the parking study right now, we're just talking about these 2 lots.
Right.
Yeah, just coming back and say,
Starting
you know, the next steps within that master plan would be identifying, you know, cost engineering, you know, just get what it's gonna take to actually get that done.
And can we include the streetscape thing with that?
I think
And
it's
actually,
actually-
like
I
we're
think
saying to
that's
one thing.
Barton, hey, we
Yeah.
wanna cross.
Bill wants to say something.
Actually, I'm gonna hand it off to you for just a minute to talk about that streetscape, because that's part of what is actually in here.
Right,
What is-
the design guidelines, as we talked about Wednesday, would incorporate public improvements as well as street crossings and private investment. So it is a holistic view and it is work. But like the Union Stanton crossing, we would come up with a preliminary design that would then need to be designed through an engineering process. But, you know, the mention of medians and, you know, what would that cross-section look like from a street perspective? How do we create a shorter distance for pedestrians to cross? That would be an example of what we'd be looking at developing within those design guidelines. So just as an example, I guess to relate back to what you're talking about, as well as streetscape and street lighting that might come with some of those enhanced crossings, what would they look like? So there's, just as an example, what we'd be looking at versus, and look at it from a holistic district perspective so that we're looking at other areas as well, so that when we get to the point, we're not gonna implement all of those pieces, but when there is a public investment plan or a private investment, that we already have that work done and ready to go to respond to when a developer asks, you know, what are the requirements, that we can show them what our expectations are through the guidelines.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So,
But
I think the next, so I think we have 3 issues that we're talking about, and I think we're hopefully wrapping up the PI thing, right? I mean, I think we all have consensus on the.
I'm not sure we do. I would like to somebody to define exactly what the scope of the PI is.
Brian?
Because the PIs that were brought up on Wednesday was signage
Those
and
design
parking.
guidelines, so we have
Yeah.
parking guidelines, design
But-
guidelines, and the PIs.
But I think, you know, we're broadening outside of this. I mean, I'm only
Well, we're
willing
gonna
to
talk
do,
about that right next.
I'm only willing to do a PI that's gonna go from, you know, the Union Stanton to the back of the courthouse. I'm not prepared to go for a PI that is greater than that.
And just
Because
so we're on the
otherwise
same page.
we lose focus again, because now all of a sudden we're including Washington, and we're including, you know, Cascade, and so.
You're
and
talking
then-
about the two parking lots,
I
right?
completely agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I completely agree. The PIs are actually specific to those two parking lots.
Yeah.
The design, we need to talk about the design guidelines and the parking site, because that is broader and more holistic. So, but the PIs are just those projects that we've talked about on those two parking lots. I believe that's correct. The PIs that we're talking about are specific to those, it's the amphitheater, it's the river balcony, it's the farmer's market.
Just get an overview of what the PIs entail.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still on the board, but I have the one PI that was initiating, that was basically solely attributed to the amphitheater and an access walkway going down to.
No, that's just on the east lot, right?
Yes, on the east lot, just the amphitheater
So,
alone.
we need
The
to
second
amend
PI,
Have to
Within the PI though, you
Amended
look at the
tonight.
feasibility, right, within the PI, you look at the feasibility of the project and you start designing what that looks like. So we're not limiting to that. By taking that action, we're not limiting to putting the amphitheater into the east parking lot. They were just using the master plan document to show as an example of what that could look like. But that all is fleshed out through
Well,
that process.
and I know precisely where Mr. Hicks is going with this, and I would recommend before, you know, on some of these we can talk about park, but as far as conceptual, yeah, these are conceptual prints.
Yeah.
However, they do have a significant bearing on how direction you give a consultant, you know, as far as we want a farmer's market in this lot or not. I would highly recommend that we press some of these 2 pages, we got it scoped down, we have conceptual layouts. You know, I heard a farmer's market, let's see what it would look like more on the west, or preliminary layouts. If you want the stand union, that'd probably involve bump outs and everything. That'd be another preliminary, like, geometric design, preliminary geometric design of how it could work and actually work. You know, because conceptual is one thing, but actually looking at it from a layout going down and how it could would be much more helpful for scoping how you want to proceed. And that's what I would recommend too, is we get some revised conceptual drawings here with layouts.
Before we can truly say, this is what we're gonna do.
Well, we're
See that?
one way or another, we're gonna have to look at the parking study and everything. But what we're talking about right now versus what I would have to work off, you know, with the amphitheater and everything, if we're talking about moving that to the west, that changes things considerably too. And when it comes down to a parking study, that's gonna change a few of things up considerably as well. So it's always nice to have options. And that might be a good start to start with realizing some of these and how, based on comments that I've heard so far.
But the theory is that the people wanted to come, they wanted an amphitheater behind City Hall. So I mean, if we're gonna change some of that, then, you know, then we just wasted our money. You know, we might as well just sit around the table and pay the council $10,000 a piece, and not the mayor. Because then we'd have used obviously the 180,000 and life would have been good.
Not the mayor, like.
I mean, yeah, well, there's only 180, so.
Just a
But,
quick,
yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, you know, we have to also take into account what the master plan said. Otherwise, we did waste our time doing it and our money.
I was just gonna ask for clarification, as we were looking at Brian's plan. I heard everybody say that the amphitheater was still a good idea down here, but maybe it was just moving the farmer's market to the west.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter, I don't think
Yep.
anybody said we move that from where it's at.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there's any way, if we wanted to proceed forward with this, if we disagree to say, okay, we want to do these 2, you know, projects with everything that's entailed here, but we just may want to tweak it a little bit, saying this might go over here, this might go over here, have them come up with just a few different ideas. It's not like we're really going away from the master plan, we're just moving things slightly. We're still pretty much keeping them in the same areas and they're going to get the same effect. But which way is it going to work the best for everybody all the way around? So, I mean, if we could just go ahead and say, okay, we want to go ahead with these 2 projects, and let's look at just a few avenues of moving a few things around that's going to work best for everybody, and, you know, get it done.
Is everyone on board with that? I think there would be the inclusion that we get something done on the west lot, short. Is that,
Yes.
is that agreeable to everyone? Okay. Then the other two things that we, take as much time as we have, I guess, are the parking study and the design guidelines. So, do we want to dive into that now, or do we want to wait until?
I don't know that we have time to.
Yeah, my
Just
biggest,
talk about it at the- just talk about it at the-
my biggest problem, I say, with the design study is the fact is that if you do it, I think it needs to be for everybody. I don't think we should be tying the hands of somebody who's getting a different form of financing than somebody who's not. If we have guidelines for what we want to do downtown, then I think the guidelines should be for everybody. Otherwise, I think it's a waste of $20,000.
One suggestion I might have is both, and then we can consider this and we can discuss as we get to the meeting, but maybe we, just in talking to, I think I've talked to all of you about this in the last short time, is maybe focus on some of those. If we're going to focus on those two lots, maybe try to focus efforts on both the design and the parking study on the impacts of those two lots. And then as we have other projects, look at how that impacts, if that makes sense. Because we don't know what's on the west lot. I think that may be the most, we've identified some different uses and stuff, but what would ultimately go long-term on the west lot would be a huge impact on downtown parking. But we don't know what that is yet, so anyway, but I do think we need to, I do think I've heard from the business owners, I do think we have to have more, have some sort of, whether it's engaging them with the consultant, engaging them with us, have that dialogue, because as soon as we impact one carved spot down there, I mean, I think we owe it to have a plan of some sort.
Right, and again, I've said it before, and I think it's understood by most people here that if we had a major business chain, let's say Kevin Bartram started something, like a micro hotel. Let's say we institute the parking study tomorrow, right? And we start laying out a holistic and everything. But let's say Kevin Bartram started something after after the parking study got going, 6 months, into it. Now, it's like a pitcher, guy comes up to the plate, and he's a hitter, but now he switch hits, and the pitcher's got to change his, he's shaking off signs, he's changing his pitches. My concern is the public money not be wasted by saying, in our minds, it's great to say, here's our plan. But if you change the input of A, B, and C, before you get to D, you're gonna have to go back and redo that study right down here again, and if you do something over the same thing. So I'm saying, look what happens, like in a business approach, it's many times it's ready, shoot, aim. Look what happens at this thing, look at the the flow, see if Kevin Bartram starts, and then look at a study that's graduated so that it takes in the areas we're actually developing, not pretending that something couldn't happen. If another business came in downtown, let's say from the mall, and plopped in, and we'd already done the study, we'd have to redo a major part of that study, cost more money. So I'm not against the studies at all, but the change, being flexible, and being realistic with the public money. And there's just that sense out there, people are saying, and I'll just refer to this is a great document. I approved it, right? We worked hard on it, right? However, when you get to the actionable steps at the end, the jump starts, there's 15 different studies, surveys, adjustments. There's only 2 things that are actionable that would bring money, action to downtown. And what I think I hear us saying is we've got to keep pushing toward that practical, get something done, like Jim said, and be careful about the public money, because people are sensitive right now about not wasting that.
Because I would add to that, to endorse that, because we've just technically wasted money. And if we're going to shift the farmers market from the east to the west parking, then we just wasted a portion of the money that we did spend on the downtown study. And we should have spoken up, prior to that. And also, I mean, the other piece is that west lot is earmarked for, more of a substantial building that the city would sell, to ultimately help finance some of these things. And obviously, in selling that building, obviously you would include that they would have to build, obviously, an element of parking. So I kind of think that it's, we could shift maybe the farmers market to the south side, so it was behind, the amphitheater, so that then that would leave, the senior center parking open, for the first basically 3 rows. I mean, you're only talking about a canopy, and it can be used as parking afterwards. So I kind of think that I see the west one being truly temporary as a focal point to bring people down. But I would still see that the west one becomes more of a substantial, capital improvement for, tax base for downtown.
Nobody asked me what I thought about it.
There's a reason.
Can we leave now?
But anyway, I think everything that everyone has said is the west lot is the most visible. It's also the most, it's the biggest prize, if you will, that we're going to get developed possibly down the road. But if we got something started there, get some vision, but if we tie the balcony, the amphitheater, and the farmer's market all into, think about it almost as one project, we could have, that could be a park, a downtown riverfront plaza park, whatever you want to call it, that we could access from Union Avenue with all the signage, with the big facade, the draw into there, and then you walk through a sculpture garden as you walk along the river. And it all feels like it could be one, so you can pull, like Anthony said, that farmers, so anyway, that's getting too far into design, but I think there's a way we can all achieve what we're doing. I think it's important, like Ralph says, to get something done, and there's money out there to get this done. I don't want us to lose that opportunity. So it sounds like on the PIs, we'll come to a consensus so we can discuss and move forward contingent upon some things being done, and we'll have.
I think definition of scope.
I think that the scope is exactly right, even within the design guidelines and within the parking study. If we can focus those down, maybe that's the way we can get an agreement and get passed. All right.
And I think just one last thing though, I think we still have to come back to how are we in reality going to fund all this? And it's like, I think we have to push to do like, an amphitheater kind of, call it your downtown Riverwalk Park, which would include the amphitheater kind of Stanton. But I also think, we still have to look at how do we ultimately fund a larger scope of river walking, which includes the dairy. And we have to look at how we're going to fund the aquatic center. And, I think we need some ballpark numbers on that. And, if for example, that's going to be a $15 million price tag, then we have to just figure out how we're going to, from our side say, well, we're going to raise, the city will fund, half of that, can groups and the community come up with the other half. But I would like to see us look at not just one thing.
Sure. Well, we can.
And this blueprint idea versus roadmap, I think Andrew explained it in an article in the paper too, we're not trying to create a blueprint that's absolutely inviolable, right? We're trying to create have the options so that as we build, we can be somewhat flexible, but we have a guideline. It's a roadmap. It's not a pure blueprint. Am I right on that? Right. Okay. So let's say someone was interested in developing or buying a piece down here that would give us tax revenue and increase, we certainly would look at that, right? Even as we're going forward with some of this, business, we've got all the business on the west lot. What if something else came in and wanted to locate something?
Right.
We look at it and see if we could shift, right? That's how I see it. That we're not just locked in. The plan isn't the ultimate thing. The ultimate thing is bringing business, getting activity, developing something down here. Right? Does that make sense?
Watch out for the slider.
Huh? The slider? Yeah, watch out for the slider. Anyhow.
Change it.
So, and I think the Farmfest committee, and the new group wants to be able to say, we can count on having the lot, kind of ready to use for an activity, this spring, summer, or June. And that's kind of the idea. Trying to make sure we kind of balance all these priorities and get something done.
All right.